Hey guys, welcome back to AdventureCruiser. So, one of the things that mystified me when I first started searching for Motorola radios was decrypting what everything means in specifically an eBay listing. I knew Motorola APX was their handheld line and their mobile line, and I didn't really understand what the numbers meant beyond that. So let's talk a little bit about the numbers, but more specifically, things that you should be aware of, and that is AN versus BN in an APX6000 or in an APX7000, and then what the different numbers mean, 6000, 7000, and 8000. Now, the APX5000 does exist, but they are really hard to find, and I believe, if my research is correct, it is basically the precursor to the 6000. So what happened is Motorola had the XTS. And the XTS is a great radio. It's a brick. You could throw it at a suspect if you needed to stop them quickly. I'm not saying you should, mind you. Go with your department requirements on use of force for that. But it was just a beast of a radio. And it was single band, meaning you could get this in VHF, UHF low, UHF high, and 7,800 megahertz. But it was one radio for one band. Well, Motorola realized that they still had a market for one radio, one band, so they introduced, again, single band portable radios that were of a newer variety. So this is the APX6000. Again, I don't have a 5000 to show you, but let's run with the 6000. When you see an APX6000, that means it is a single band radio, just like the XTS. It does either VHF, UHF low, UHF high, which is UHF low is what you want if you're in ham. If you're in public safety, typically that's only UHF high. A lot of military bases run UHF low, but if you are in ham, you absolutely need UHF low or UHF 1. Sorry, I digress. So this is a single band radio, VHF, UHF 1, UHF 2, or 7,800 megahertz. Great radio, fit the bill. It's exactly what was needed. But Motorola also saw that their post 9/11 was a need for a multi-band radio. Now, in my specific county, we have two major systems that run 7,800 megahertz, and then we have CAL FIRE and our wildland fire services, as well as a few other federal and state agencies that run VHF. So there is a legitimate need for a dual band radio. Now, I'm 1/2 counties away from Los Angeles. Now, Los Angeles runs UHF 2 almost exclusively, and now they're adopting a lot more 7,800 megahertz. But they have a really weird relationship with CAL FIRE, where LA County kind of doesn't have CAL FIRE do a whole lot there. So there really isn't much of a need for VHF. However, having VHF on a big fire would be a benefit. The APX7000 is always a dual band radio unless it was specially configured and ordered in some backwoods weird fashion where it only has one band. I've never seen that. I've heard of it once. I think that was probably just a broken radio, but that's my opinion. The APX7000 as a dual band radio was a pretty revolutionary radio. It gave departments the opportunity to communicate across agency lines, across county lines, and while it was not the first by any means to be a dual band radio, it was one of the more popular ones. And having a dual band radio is especially nice if you're accustomed to being a ham radio operator and you can buy just about any ham radio as a VHF and UHF radio. But again, if you're a ham operator, don't get UHF 2. UHF 2 is no bueno. It will not work. I think the lower limit of UH2 is 460 megahertz. And if you're in 440, you're just done. So anyways, fast forward in 2000 and, oh boy, where'd it go? In 2016, June of 2016, Motorola said, we are no longer going to take orders for nor ship the Motorola APX7000. And they replaced that with the APX8000. Now the 8000 is actually pretty revolutionary. Not only is it smaller, but it is more capable. It offers a lot of new features that the 7000 didn't have. For instance, it adds an extra band. So again, unless there was a really unique and special order, these are quad band. VHF, UHF 1 and 2, and then 700-800 megahertz. They still call it a quad band because UHF is split into two groups, but as you'll see with BK radios, they're now sometimes referring to these as a tri-band because UHF is just that 400 to 512 megahertz span. This radio gave agencies a tremendous ability to talk to everybody, with permission, of course. I met with a deputy for LA County recently, and I was just talking radios. I was showing him my new BK, and he was showing me his APX8000. And I said, you know, what benefit did you get from going to a multi-band radio? And he said, honestly, there are 120 different police agencies within LA County alone. He said, I have every single one programmed into my radio. I thought that was pretty amazing. So you can have 120 different zones. You can have everybody's frequencies. You can have multiple trunk groups. You can have up to 5,000 channels in this of VHF, UHF 1, 2, and 700 megahertz. That is a really big benefit. Now these come with a pricey, words, important, too much caffeine. These come with a hefty price tag. Now, I have seen prices online. I've never bought one new, but the price I saw for one of these was around $8,000. And then this deputy told me that his department's spending $10,000. Now, I don't know if that's with the radio, a couple of batteries, a car charger, home charger, remote speaker mic, all that. But that is a ton of money. $10,000 for a radio. And I understand it's important. Life and safety matters, interoperability matters, but that's a lot of money. So if you are trying to buy one, what should you look for? Well, it depends on if you're going for flashy or if you're going for function. And what I mean by that is, if you want to own one of these, to own one, great, go for it. They are fun to play with. But it's important to understand the limits. First of all, the rules are very simple. Never, ever, never talk on a frequency you do not have express permission to talk on. That is a no-no on every level. Don't even try it. It's just, if nothing else, rude, besides illegal. The APX7000 is starting to go out of vogue because it's harder and harder to find replacement parts for these. Motorola stopped supporting these in 2016. And some shops still will have parts for these, but they are getting harder and harder to find. And it's important to know that there are two varieties of the 7000. I'm going to see if I can hold this up to the screen clearly enough for you to see it. But in the model number, it ends in AN. Now, AN is the older version of these. It's like a mid-year model in a car, if you will. It's the same physical size of radio, but the internals are entirely different. So what may fit on a newer, the APX7000 BN, won't fit on the AN. So you may be darn close to finding the right part and it not working. The same goes for the APX6000. It's important to note that there is a BN version of this radio. Now the BN differs in one major category, and that is the ability to use additional remote speaker mics and accessories that fit onto this port. So let me show you the differences here. There we go. Do you see the difference in these ports? This is the APX8000. This is the 6000. So technically there's the same generation of radio. This is the AN version. Now I do have a BN version, but it's not here with me today, but it has this connector. Now, when I had my APX Next, I bought a remote speaker mic for it, thinking it was going to be a forever radio, and that's still a painful subject. But that speaker mic won't work on an AN version radio. It will only work on an 8000 or a BN. So again, AN is like generation 1, BN is generation 2, but still in the same form factor. but it's important to understand that parts that work for an AN might not work for a BN. When you are searching for one online to buy, if you have the opportunity to buy a BN, in this case, it actually does make a difference. The parts availability and the future lifespan of that radio will be greater than one that is an AN version. Other than that, let's go back through this in a quick recap. APX7000, great radio. In my opinion, it's in many ways better than the 6 and the 8. Making sure I keep things straight here. The 7000 feels great in the hand. It's fun to use. The screen clarity is better on this. And what I mean by screen clarity is I mean the pixel density. It's easier to read the display than it is on the 6000 and the 8000, which I think is dumb. You should never go backwards in your abilities, but they do it all the time apparently. The 7000 is a dual band radio. The 6000 single band, the 8000 is quad or tri-band depending on how you look at it. The 7000 should say in here, in this case it says UHF R1 VHF. If it's a legitimate radio, that will match what the radio actually has. If you're in ham and you want to talk on UHF, you have to have UHF R1. The APX7000 is a fantastic radio. I really like it. You can have them with Bluetooth. You can have them with a lot of different features. But again, you're going to want to go to acredam.net to figure out what that feature set really is enabled on this radio. APX6000, if you are trying to find one that you want to keep forever, I would definitely search for a BN version. Its lifespan will be greater. The parts availability will be greater. An AN is still a great radio. But if new speaker mics and accessories come out, they probably won't work on this as well, if at all. The APX8000 for now is still one of the flagships for Motorola, and it is a very good radio that has a lot of features. But again, if you're going to buy one of these, and they're very expensive, so try to make sure that the tags match, that you understand what the feature set is. Check out my video on the flash codes, and understand what you're getting before you put the money into this. All three of these have the ability to use the same batteries, but the APX7000, where'd it go? One of these, can use older batteries that don't work as well on the 8000. When I put this specific battery into the 6000 or the 8000, I get an error saying that it's unable to read the battery, which is strange because it's an Imprez 2 and it should. Maybe I just have a weird battery. But on newer batteries, if you were to buy something, they're going to work on all three of these radios. You can occasionally find these goofy, super long batteries. I think they're hideous, and the capacity is silly. It has 2100 milliamp hours, and this has 2900 milliamp hours. So, really? This has more capacity than this? Don't even bother with the extra battery. So, if you were buying a radio that you want to keep forever, I strongly encourage, if you want it to be Motorola, the 8000. The 8000 has every feature you'll want as long as it's been enabled, or I would get a 7000 VHF UHF 1. I do use the APX6000 because I have a strong need for VHF, but I really prefer just grabbing an 8000 or frankly taking my slightly older 7000. But I hope that this helps you understand the differences between the generational numbers and the series numbers. So again, the 5000 and 6000 are single band. The 7000 and 8000 are multi-band. The 7000 is only 2 bands, and they are specific to the hardware inside. You cannot have it reprogrammed to change the frequency spectrum. It just doesn't work. The 8000, unless it's a unicorn, should have all 4 bands enabled, and you can easily check that by turning on the power, pushing the bottom one, the bottom button there until it goes into service mode, And as it goes through, it figures out, as it's reading its own internal stuff, it is going to tell you that all 4 bands are enabled. And just bear with me for 1 second while I show you real fast, and then we'll go from there. It tells me what encryptions are available. Really, unless you have a departmental need for encryption, the likelihood of you actually using encryption is pretty low. It's not the easiest thing to do, and ADP is the only encryption that you can use without, there we go, RF band 1, RF band 2, UHF 1, UHF 2, and 7,800 megahertz. So, yeah, don't fall for the encryption thing. Unless you know exactly what you're doing and you have the encryptor device, a key loading tool, KVL3000 or 4000, you are limited just to software-based encryption. And even then, the legality of using it on certain channels is sketchy at best. Unless you have your own licensed frequencies, it's really difficult to use it legally. So I wouldn't waste your money on, falling for these, oh, it has all 4 algorithms or all 5 encryption algorithms. I wouldn't waste your money on it. All that said, any of these are really good radios. There is no BN8000 that I've seen. It's only in the 5000, 6000, and 7000 that they offer a BN version, and that is what I would search for if I were going for any of these radios. I hope that helps. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.